Hi, and welcome to another episode of Money Talk. And I have a very special guest for you today. We have cooked up something good, a foodie, a podcaster, and somebody that's just doing all kinds of things to rock it out. So I've got two requests for you right now. And that is if you like what you see, if you hear something that you loved, share it. Don't keep it to yourself. Bring others into the community about money talk. Second thing is stay tuned because we will be right back. Linda gave me the courage, the confidence to move forward.
And after I was finished with Linda Kaye's training, I was at the next level.
It's Linda Kaye. But when you trust that piece of you that says, I got something to give, I have something to say, you know you've got something to do.
Get on your feet, shake your hands in the air. Welcome to the stage, Linda Kaye.
And we're back. So I promised you that we're cooking up something really pretty cool today. So I am going to bring this special guest on. And there are a lot of people that you can meet in your lifetime that only do one thing. And, they could do the one thing really well. But I'm getting ready to bring somebody on that does a whole lot of things. And I'm going to have to hang on to his feet to keep him focused. I have to put his feet to the fire. Welcome to the stage, Robert Crutchfield. Robert, welcome.
I'm here.
You're here.
How is everybody?
I think everybody is fine, but I think you might want to reach out to your audience if you're talking to them, and as we are. And we've got comments. We've got people that are chatting with us already. So thank you very much. If you like what you see, make sure that you share it. You like it. You love it. You subscribe to this channel. So talk to me, Robert, about some of the things that you're working on. I think that one of the most interesting things that I read about you is the initiative formula. And these are aspects of customer service. So now, before we jump into that, I know you've been podcasting. You're a foodie. You're a man after my own heart. You love to cook. You've got I'm guessing over 50 recipes available. And maybe we'll get lucky enough to have you share one with us coming up with the holidays. But moreover, you've spent time in customer service and you've learned a thing or two about it. So talk to me about what is the initiative formula?
Well, the initiative formula, put quite simply, by quoting it, is initiative is bred by competence, initiative is bred by confidence, and confidence is bred by competence.
Now that was a mouthful. So wait a minute. What do you mean by that?
Well, the idea is to boil down the process of getting members of a person's team to exercise more initiative, because initiative is something you can encourage, but you can't really teach it.
No, I think that initiative is something that comes from within. You either have it or you don't have the initiative. But as it relates to customer service, what does that mean?
Well, that touches on another one of my sore points in customer service, and that is too many places only train people to do the minimum to do their job.
Whereas, wait a minute. You're touching on a subject that really hurts, okay? Why is it that we frequently find the wrong people in customer service because they're not giving customer service? They're there to read the company line that might be, it says no, no, and no. That's not our policy. No. So how do you train? What is it that you bring to the table, Robert, in this initiative, in this formula? Tell me what the formula is.
Well, the two keys to activating the formula and to implementing it is, one, if anything, you have to overtrain your people and cross-train your people. I talk about organizational knowledge, for instance. Your customer-facing people need to know who in your organization can do what. so that they can think
They
outside.
typically don't do that, though. I think that, are you talking about, customer service like at a, I don't know, at a Staples, or are you talking about an organization that is forward facing to that they have a niche, they have a vertical that they speak to, and they sell a product or a service to that group? The forward facing people could be the ones that are either on the phone or they could be at a help desk. Would you agree?
And I've been at both, and I would agree. And I think it works equally well both places, because what happens too often in customer service is the service is siloed.
What does that mean?
Well, too segmented. You're in this bubble of a sort. I've been in a call center environment where you take a person's call, you try to help them with the problem, you're going tappy, tappy, tappy on your computer. You never see or hear from that person again. You're on to the next call within mere seconds.
Okay.
From your standpoint, there is no follow-up. There is no, in most cases, there is no reaching out to other parts of your organization for a solution that might not be in the book.
So I want to drill down just a little bit, Robert.
Okay.
I really think that what you're talking about is an important topic, but I also think that you could segment this, because what you just said, which was somebody calls up, they dial up, they get customer service on the phone, and the customer service goes tappy, tappy, tappy on their computer, and they either get transferred up or down, right? So they have a level of escalation. Let's say, for instance, maybe they have 3 levels. They are trained to do 3 things. And let's say it's as simple as I can't get my printer to work. And that happens to me a lot, right? Yeah. So I have to call customer service, or I'm using an application like QuickBooks or Intuit, something that requires a little bit more. Nobody gives you a CD. And if you got a CD for an application, you can't even load it, right? And so you have to call customer service in order to get service or get something to work for us. If that is not resolved at the first level, you're going to get moved on to the second level. So the tappy, tappy, tappy could be customer resolved this problem, right? But if they didn't, where does it go? It should probably go on up. It moves up. And maybe they go more and more tappy, tappy, and then they get it resolved, or they still don't get it resolved. I think what you're talking about are the people that fall through the cracks on that.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Absolutely. Part of what I'm looking at is the idea of flattening the operation, where maybe you don't escalate up and down so much. When I did that kind of work, I worked in a third-party environment, and all they really seemed to care about from a management standpoint is how many calls you took in a day.
Hold on.
The problems got solved was irrelevant.
Hold on. But what you're talking about is a service level agreement. If I'm hearing you correctly.
To a large extent, yes.
So service level agreement says that you agree to take these number of calls, and if you take that number of calls, then we pay you based on that contract. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying we should collapse it and really go more towards problem resolution, not how many people did you call.
Exactly. I think it's basically a quality over quantity type argument. The trouble is, like you're talking about with the service level agreements, is we would have to redo the business model for a lot of customer service, especially third-party customer service, in order to make that happen.
That would be kind of tough, don't you think?
It would take some thought, no doubt about it.
So what would have to happen in order for that to work? What would have to happen?
Well, 2 things. One, like I said, you would have to overtrain your people. They would have to know more than just their own job. They would have to have their own knowledge of how their organization operates.
Now, how is that possible? Hold on. You're saying something really important, but what happens to the company that's providing the SLA, that is the third party, that's the call center, The call center has to take certain number of calls. They're trained with responses for what are the top usual frequently asked questions, and here's how you answer this. So, and they only have a certain amount of time because they're incented to get off the phone as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
So when we want somebody to do something, we have to dangle the reward towards the behavior that we want to reward, right?
Absolutely. And the
So
problem
then how would you do that?
the problem in that scenario is that you're incentivized to game the system for that much matter to make your call volumes look higher. And that's the tougher environment to do this. Now, in the super center environment where I've also worked, where you have a store with multiple departments, I had a evaluation one time, and what was funny is the manager doing the evaluation asked me what department was there in the store that I could not get something done. And I thought for a few seconds, and he said, "Yeah, I thought so." Point
So
being
he
is,
already knew the problem. He knew where the bottleneck was.
but the point is, I knew not only my department and my position within that store, I knew how the other departments and the other positions in the store operated. Therefore, I had a greater degree of ability than most associates he was used to create solutions for my customers that were outside my literal training.
So let me ask you this, Robert. What do you think the impact of AI is going to have on customer service?
I think, in fact, I just did an article on that as well. I think it's going to be, it depends on how it's implemented, like everything else. If it's implemented properly, I think it's going to be what the military calls a force multiplier. Let me explain how that could work. One way that could work would be, say you are in a call center, you're taking a call. You're a human call taker. Question is, where is the AI? The AI could, for instance, pull up a knowledge-based article link to an article addressing the problem the customer is having, and AI is so capable, it could pull it up in an email ready for you to send to the customer, which helps you leverage your time, and as those seconds add up, equals you taking more calls.
Isn't that the goal?
Certainly in the third-party type environment like we were talking about a minute ago, it would be. But that's part of the answer to the question we were asking a while ago, is bringing in things like AI implemented appropriately, where instead of replacing human customer service agents, AI actually empowers customer service agents.
So you're not suggesting that there would be a bot sitting out there that answers all the questions and takes the human factor out?
Not entirely, no. Although it can be used
Wait a
for that.
minute. You can't take me partially out. I mean, so are you thinking that there might be other processes that could triage, kind of like medical, right? You take the worst situation and then you try to
Now
break
you're
it
getting
down.
there. Because
Okay.
bear in mind that you have, in today's world, you have different channels in a lot of businesses for customer service. You have customer service over the phone. You have customer service over social media. You have customer service. Another point for the AI bots is a lot of businesses don't have customer service open 24/7. AI bots are always there. They can answer simple questions even when the live call center is closed. But they
Robert,
also can do the triage process like you're talking about.
you bring up a good point, because when I have to reach out to the customer service, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going out and doing a YouTube search, or I'm doing a Google search to find out if other people are having this same problem, because I frequently will go to the website for the service provider or the product producer, and I'll ask a question in the search bar, and it'll just throw me into frequently asked questions, which is very frustrating, right?
Sure.
And so many applications today have the ability to have something called a help desk. So if I implemented a help desk, like I have a membership site, I have a help desk. And the help desk will answer a lot of those questions, but I could see where AI could figure out, based on the training that I would do on it with the information that's in my membership site, on how to find something. Is that how you see it working? And if not, how would you see it working?
Well, no, you're pretty much there. And let me use an example from my real world experience about things like that.
Okay.
Because I think it's really important to understand how some of these technologies coming out, including both AI and social media, can speed things up. When I worked in the call center environment, excuse me, one of our clients, which happened to be a computer company, had a list of 10 questions. And we were required to ask these 10 questions of every customer. Reason being is, in our client company's experience, 90% of the calls they got coming into their technical support contact center could be answered through the answers to those 10 questions. Now, why couldn't that process, for instance, be automated and done by a chat bot, and done by a chat bot 24/7, 365?
So what do you think the biggest issue is with customer service?
That reminds me of something else that I heard years ago. I forget where I read it, but there was a trend there for a while where computer companies were actually hiring social sciences majors, like psychology majors or sociology majors, to do tech support, because they found it was easier to teach people the technology than it was to teach people to care about the customer. And that's always kind of stuck in my head. And I think that's one of the issues is, I think that people get into customer service in too many cases, or they get pushed into customer service in too many cases for the wrong reasons, or the wrong people end up in customer service.
So you're talking about the Peter principle, right? You know, so
partly. At the same time, it goes back to the example I was talking about, where you get people, because some customer service jobs can pay quite well. So the people that go into that environment, because they pay quite well. But despite what a lot of people would think, paying people quite well doesn't make them care.
Oh, that is interesting. And what's the problem in customer service with somebody that doesn't care?
Well, if you have somebody that doesn't care, that's where you're going to get people who are more prone to, say, game the system, like I talked about a while ago, and just churn the numbers so that they look good for the boss. But they don't care if the customer's problem ever got solved, even if they have the ability to do so.
Okay.
I've worked with two different companies that have a rule. Oddly enough, pretty much the same rule both places. Any customer issue under $20, anybody that works for the company is completely authorized and empowered to solve that issue, but try and get them to do it.
Is it not worth their time? Is it not worth with the money? What is it? What's the problem with that?
I don't think that there's one answer to that question, but I think it does go to the idea of having customer-facing people that care about the customer. So, as I've pointed out to people in that environment, okay, say I make $12 an hour. I'm arguing with this customer over this $4 dispute. Okay, we go round and round for, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
They want to see my manager. My manager makes more than $12 an hour. Okay, so even if we're 100% right, I've already spent more than there is in dispute, just in my salary, the manager's salary, etc.
However,
but if I cared about the customer, I would have short-circuited all that by saying, you know what? $4 is not bankrupting my company. You win.
Yeah. But is the human being hooked up to say, okay, I give up. in customer service? I mean, where does that, I mean, that's the kind of thing that AI could say, okay, we've already figured this out. Here's your solution. And as opposed to getting the human emotion, the ego involved with the resolution.
Ego is certainly a big part of it. I think there's an old saying in sales that in every sales discussion, somebody buys something from somebody. Either the customer buys the salesperson's product or service, or the salesperson buys the customer's justifications for not buying the product or service, but somebody buys something.
Okay, so there's an exchange.
Right. I think a lot of times it's the same thing. You get people that, when it comes to ego, you get people that are more interested in winning and feeding their ego or being right other than serving the customer.
But it sounds to me like your solution as part of the formula has has thought through some of this and thought through, some of the resolutions. What would you say would be a takeaway for the listeners to understand what it is that's in the initiative formula?
The biggest takeaway from the initiative formula is assuming you have the right person in the right place, that person has been properly trained to excess, ideally, and that person is empowered to make mistakes. The takeaway is that a person who has been set up in that manner is more likely to exercise initiative than the average customer service agent out there.
That's a very fascinating concept, because I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that more organizations really want to, they would empower the employee, but only if they're right? So they're actually kind of conditioned to get it right, as opposed to making a mistake. Making a mistake is not something I want to pay you for. Is that an accurate assessment?
Absolutely accurate. And that's where a lot of the paralysis we see in customer service and elsewhere in business comes from. Instead, the other half of implementing the initiative formula is, one, creating an environment where when things are not done the way you would like them to be done, is to not see them as mistakes, but to see them as training opportunities. The other thing is you have to have an environment where people don't have to be perfect.
What?
I've been in customer service environments where managers come and ask me, why did you do blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, to take care of the customer.
Because it was the right thing to do, right?
They walk away. It may not have been the way that particular manager would have handled the situation. We may have a discussion later about how to handle it better the next time. But it was accepted that I was willing to go beyond the script or what the book says to make a happy customer. One thing we have to bear in mind, and I discussed this a year or two ago with the chief operations officer of a major fast food chain, is in almost any business, the most expensive customer is a new one. We seem to have forgotten that.
That's, I think that it goes without saying that, your most expensive customer is your first one or your newest one, because they're getting a new experience. They're getting the first impression. But I think many companies and individuals, and especially entrepreneurs, forget that whatever it took to get the job, you have to continue to do to keep the job, right? So we forget, we gloss over it. But I noticed something recently, Robert, and I don't know if you or my listeners or your listeners have noticed this, but every time I call in to do, I don't care what service or product I'm calling in on. It could be just, to correct something on the phone or a correction on the billing. I immediately get asked, will you take this survey? What's going on with that?
Well, it has to do with what we in the customer service business call metrics and the desire to measure how well we're doing.
And
You've
what do you
hit on one of
suppose
my
is,
pet peeves.
wait a minute,
because
what is spawning that? What's making that happen? Do you think that the companies are figuring out that there's a problem, or are they just trying to figure out, you know, how satisfied with somebody and can I do away with the employee? Where do you think this is coming from?
it's not necessarily seeing a problem. It actually, if anything, is trying to prevent problems before they happen. But you've hit on one of my pet peeves about this is done. A lot of those pop-up surveys and whatnot just happen too darn early. I was saying this elsewhere recently. I go to a website, never been on this website ever in my entire life. I'm there 15 seconds. Up pops the little window. Will you please tell us how happy you are with our service and our product? It's like, I haven't even seen your blasted product yet. Even if I had an opinion and was willing to give it to you, it wouldn't be worth anything.
It's too early. Yeah, but that's not one of the choices. Am I asking this question too early? That's not one of them. But you know, if the company is listening, ask us, is it too early to ask a question? Did you get a result yet?
Or how about ask me later? I've never seen either.
Right. You know, you get these registrations. I don't know if you've ever gotten a brand new product. Like I'm going to go back to the printer because it's a constant example and a consistent example. You go and you register. Oh, actually, you go in because you need to now download the driver for the printer.
Right.
And because nothing that you have works, of course. And so you download it and it takes you to this registration page. And fortunately, many of the companies today are saying, okay, maybe, you know, maybe it took, I wish they had a way of timing. How long did it take her to download that? How long did it take, you know, they could have a cookie that follows me someplace, right? We've got cookies for everything and tracking for everything.
That's actually not impossible.
I know it's not impossible, but they don't want to know this. But they immediately want me to register. And of course, I take myself off of the, no, I don't want to receive, you know, special bonuses or your partner's bonuses or information. But I'll always select do it later. And guess what, Robert? 3 days later, it pops up and says, ready?
Right?
Not ready. I need time with the product. So how does your initiative go through the customer journey?
Well, the initiative formula goes through the customer journey because the way it does that is you have to understand the idea behind the initiative formula is to put the power into the customer service agent.
Right.
And the extension of that is the idea behind the initiative formula is to every occasion possible solve the customer's issue in the first call and in the first few minutes of the first call, for that matter, if at all possible.
Right.
And not have to, because a lot of the things, a lot of the problems that customers face is they get bounced around from department to department and company to company. You were talking about printers. You have a problem with the printer. The thing that I've seen in years past is the printer company says it's a problem with your computer, and the computer says,
uh-oh.
And your printer and your computer are made by two completely different companies. So what do you as a customer do?
So they get bounced around to another division or somebody else's department, right?
This is what the initiative formula in part seeks to avoid. I had one of the most frustrating things I had to tell people when I did that kind of work, especially in computers, is that Windows would pop up with this little message that said, contact your system administrator.
Right.
Of course, the customer's question is, okay, who's my system administrator?
Right, because we're the customer.
Like, unfortunately, you are.
Great. You're like, okay.
Because this particular computer is not even on a network, so you're it.
That's so funny. You know, it sounds to me like you and I have a very similar background. I grew up in the high tech market after leaving one or two careers, and there are some things that just never leave you. So what you're talking about is a pain level that I think a lot of companies forgot, because they had systems administrators to be able to fix problems, and it's been replaced with customer service or frequently asked questions, or, SOL, you're on your own, right? So
right. People my age and your age, and people that aren't, say, my 19-year-old grandson's age, who grew up in technology,
right.
we're used to what used to be called the IT priesthood days. These kind of weird looking geeky people were the only ones that understood how the computers worked, and
Oh, so true. And
you
you were
knew how
the
to
right
turn the computer on, and that was about it. And if anything went wrong, you had to call the IT priesthood people to fix it. Whereas
and
probably 30 years ago, even, the computer companies, the software companies, etc., switched away from the IT priesthood idea to the idea that every end user is a administrator to some point. And
oh my
the
God. Now,
computer
Robert,
companies, the technology computer companies got to where they had an expectation that the end user knew more than the end user did. And it took some catch up. And I'm still not sure we're completely caught up, for the technology companies to get the expectations on the part of the customer to meet their higher expectations.
so I'm going to stop you right there, because 30 years ago is like talking about the dark ages, because today, a single year is like the dog years in technology, right? So
Right.
when we think about how to solve a problem, I think today's entrepreneur is used to having to sort out how to figure things out on their own. And I would absolutely welcome the idea that an application or a membership site or anything else would help me solve the problem and get me granularly there, so I can figure out the rest. Because we've raised a lot of people that are very independent. They want to find their own answers, right? So
Sure.
I think what you're talking about is the tweaking of customer service as it is today, getting the right people in there, getting people cross-trained so that they are empowered to be able to take the initiative to spend a little bit more time and be more customer focused, meaning problem solving oriented, right?
Right. That, and I think a lot of things are easier for me to see, or it seems to me like they're easier to see, because of my own background. Over the last 30, 40 years, especially, we've gotten to be an age of specialists. In the medical field, for instance, I've joked, half seriously, half not, that you don't just need a podiatrist. You have to go and see the left foot podiatrist, because your problem is with your left foot. It's not like the old days where you had the GP down the street that took care of pretty much every medical problem you ever had. So I think that
But what aren't
I
our
think our work
problems
society's become
complex?
over specialized in a lot of ways.
But don't you
Right.
think the problems have become more complex that need that kind of specialty? Or are you thinking that the medical industry has made, decisions that have kind of complicated the resolutions? And
I
that's
I,
the
th- I think that's
medical.
at least partially true, but I go back to the idea of things being siloed or stovepiped. Uh, what I see as one of my advantages is that I'm the 21st century Renaissance man. I've been a soldier, I've been a computer technician, I've been a part-time newspaper reporter, I've been a podcaster, I've been a cook in a restaurant, I've been so many different things. So when a problem that's not in the book, that wasn't anticipated, comes up, I'm drawing all these crazy ideas in from all these different directions that a lot of people in today's work world, they just don't have the inventory of experiences to be able to do that.
I think you're right. I think that that what you're what you're describing is the hyper focus of one industry, taking that and using that to add to your level of expertise, so that you're constantly using these things as building blocks so that you can reach out and try something different in the recipe, try something that, because you know how it's going to behave. What's the problem with that in customer service?
The problem with that in customer service is it's the same kind of thing. Everything is balkanized. Why not have a customer service person spend, say, a week in the shipping department, or shipping a week in the billing department, or something like that?
But isn't there,
still a
wait a minute, there's reality TV shows that put the boss in and so he begins to understand. I think what you're talking about is walk a mile in my shoes so you understand what my process is. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, to a large degree, at least. It's like that gets into what I talked about earlier, what I call organizational knowledge. I mean, even a week here and there. I mean, a customer service person is still a customer service specialist, but that doesn't mean they can't know what, depending on how long they're there, 2, 3, 4, even more parts of the company do and how they do it. Because then when the customer has an issue, instead of sending them over to the other department, they're telling the other department, do this and do it this way. And the other department's going to say, we can't do that. And the person's going to say, yes, you can. Let me show you how.
We've never done that before, right? That's my favorite thing.
It's like, I've done that. Don't tell me you can't do it, or I'll come down there and I'll show you.
I'll show you. That's so funny. I'm going to shift gears for just a minute. I hear that you love to cook, and
I do.
That is something that's near and dear to my heart because I like to eat. I am a total foodie. When people say, Linda Kaye, what is your favorite food? And I say, I don't know. I'm an equal opportunity foodie. So, I'll try it. I'll try everything. So tell me how you got, is this just something natural that you came up with? Or were you the kid that stayed in the kitchen longer with mom so you could figure out how she was making something?
Actually, I wish I spent more time in the kitchen with mom when I was younger. But oddly enough, my grandfather and my great-grandfather were both chefs.
Really?
So to a degree, it's in my DNA.
It definitely is in your DNA. Oh my goodness.
And when I say chefs, I'm not talking chefs just because they cook at the local diner. I'm talking about pictures in the newspaper. And my grandfather in particular worked both here in Houston and in New Orleans, both of which are very big food cities with completely different cuisines.
They are, definitely. And how did that get handed down to you? Tell me what a food gathering in the family looked like.
When I was it got a little bit different as I got older and the family got thinner. But if you go back to when I was younger, say elementary, juniors, you would talk like we got Thanksgiving coming up. You would get coming up to Thanksgiving and the week ahead of time. You would have food prepared in 5, 6 different kitchens.
Wow.
And it would all be brought together, and there would be just long tables of food with Cajun influences, German influences, good Southern home cooking influences.
Oh my goodness. I can't imagine. So, in my home, there would be a turkey on the table and we had traditional things that we love to cook, but there wasn't a lot of exploration in the food preparation. It sounds to me like you explored a lot of things and your family was willing to, let's taste this, or there became favorites. What was your favorite thing? What was your favorite holiday?
I don't know. Thanksgiving was a real big one, not just because of all the food, but just because in my family, at least, there was a larger percentage of the family there at Thanksgiving than there was at Christmas.
I think that's a fair assessment too. And it also means it's the kickoff to the holidays, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we just got over all the candy and the collections for Halloween and got everything put away. And then we have this little bit of lull, which you don't see in the stores anymore, because I got to tell you, I was at Costco at the end of summer and I could already see the Christmas trees up. It was just like, stop this, so you're rushing me. But when you have that holiday that takes you, everybody's now thinking about the things that are on the table, the things that we're grateful for, the things that, I'll tell you, when I got to that point, I'm like, okay, Christmas is just 3 weeks away. 3 weeks away. And it also means towards the end of the year. But was your favorite food in preparation the things that were longer to cook, longer to take time, longer to simmer, or were they the short, sweet, get them done, get them on the table?
I got a lot of the short, sweet, get them on the table thing during the majority of the year. During the holidays, my favorite would probably were the longer foods, particularly ham and of course turkey, because turkey in particular.
You got to brine it,
Try
right?
even buying a turkey in the grocery store in June.
No.
I'm just
No,
saying. Something
No.
like 80% of the turkeys sold all year are sold heading into Thanksgiving.
That's so true. That is very, very, very true. But you like to blog about food. What is it in particular that you like to blog about? And how does your community engage with you?
Well, my blog has pretty much gone away. Now it's more my podcast. And my podcast has been just amazing.
What's the name of your podcast?
My podcast is Crutchfield Cooks, the podcast, which plays off of the name of the blog that I wrote for right at 3 years. But through my podcast, it hasn't been that long ago. For instance, I interviewed the world food champion. Not just
And who is that? Who is the world food champion? Who is it?
John McFadden. He's actually from Sydney, Australia.
And why is
First
he
non-American to ever hold the title?
But what makes that unique? What is a food champion? What are they championing?
Well, what the World Food Championships does is they first this past year, I think they had 9 categories. First you have to win your way in through a qualifying competition. Then you have the 9 categories, and the 9 categories each year, usually about this time of the year. In fact, it's coming up in less than a month. They choose a champion in each of the 9 categories. And then roughly 6 months later, the 9 category champions get together at a completely different location and go through, I think it's 4 more levels of competition that they use to pick the grand champion or the ultimate world food champion.
What was the dish that he won with?
I can't remember other than it was a fish dish.
Oh, there you go.
Because he was the fish champion, and then he won the overall championship.
Well, there you
What's
go.
amazing,
You got to do something, right? That's awesome. Well, you're not you're no slouch in the kitchen either. You went to the World Chef Academy. What is it that you learned, and what was it that drove you to the World Chef Academy?
Because I was an older student, for one thing. Like a lot of people, I didn't necessarily have the time or the money to go to
like Cordon Bleu,
normal 3-4 year culinary school,
right?
Even though I could have. But the point is, by the time I had done that, I'd had so much little career left to use that information. It wasn't necessarily practical.
Okay.
And World Chefs Academy was actually created by the World Association of Chef Societies for just that kind of need, and for people who just flat out necessarily couldn't afford regular culinary school. Now, you don't get with World Chefs Academy, you don't get the hands-on practice that you would.
Well, because it's virtual, right?
Huh?
It's virtual, right?
Yes, it's on the computer. Now, there are computer culinary schools where you do get a certain amount of hands-on practice, which we could almost do a whole other episode on how that happens. But at World Chefs, you don't. But you do get, and what makes World Chefs Academy interesting is it was written, developed, and it's run out of World Chefs headquarters in Paris. So it's a completely different perspective than what from us in the United States, because
Sure.
it's written from a European perspective. And they go into everything like kitchen appliances, kitchen utensils, basic cooking skills, food safety. There's 60 lessons to that program altogether.
Well, I've got to tell you, Robert, you really are the Renaissance man. How do people find you? What's the best way to find you? I think we saw a banner. Ron, if you can bring that back up, roll that across.
Yeah.
What is Learn More, Eat Better?
Learn More, Eat Better is the home of my podcast. That's
Awesome.
the easiest way to find my different podcast episodes.
We can
and
find
that
you
sort
on
of thing.
LinkedIn and all kinds of other places as well.
I think Ron has my LinkedIn address too.
Yep, there
And
we go.
that is the place to find more general information about my work in customer service, some of the more recent training I've done. There's links to some of my recipes and even some of my customer service articles and things like that.
Wait a minute. I heard that there might even be a link to your pecan pie recipe. Is that right?
That is one of the recipes that it is linked to from there. Yes.
Awesome. Well, Robert, I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been a delight. You are such a fun guest to talk with, and I really wish you the best with the initiative formula because I think we need better customer service.
Oh, I'll be doing some more work on the initiative formula. That's for sure.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And that wraps us up for another great episode of Money Talk. Join us next week when we have a lot of other things to talk about. And I'm not going to give you any hints, but he is pretty exciting. I'll talk to you soon. Do you like to talk about money? If you do and you'd like to be a guest, contact me at lindakay360.com.